What is up, guys? It's AG here. You might have noticed that we actually got the webcam on today. It's just because it's a really special occasion. And if you haven't noticed as well, I'm also wearing my Foxy onesie that I actually bought like almost a year and a half ago. So I've had it for a little bit. So I'm not just a fake fan. You know what I'm saying? I've been a big fan of the whole game series since it first came out when I was in like sixth grade, and you can probably do the math how long ago that was. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out the way, just get the elephant out the room. So yeah, if you're new here, you might not know how things go with these movie reviews. So basically, I just go through some of the basic stuff, like it's gonna be the background of the movie, the characters, the writing, the theme, in comparison. That could be probably going to be like the first movie for this video. And then my final thoughts are usually where I just like kind of genuinely talk about what's going on in the movie and like my thoughts and maybe a little spoilers in this one. We'll probably hit some spoilers towards the end. Um, but before that, I'll try to keep it as spoiler free as possible. But if there's any spoilers, I'll just try to let you know before I say them. Without further ado, let's get into the review. So we're gonna start with the background. So if you have like no info on the movies at all, so basically it's like a Five Nights at Freddy's haunted pizzeria thing. Animatronics are haunted. Just think like Chuck E. Cheese, but like evil, pretty much. Um, and that's pretty much going on as far as like background. So you get like the gist of it. You probably tell like most of what's going on in like the thumbnail and everything. And of course like the trailer that's playing looped behind me. So yeah, I mean, just think like a haunted Chuck E. Cheese. And if you haven't seen the first movie, I do recommend it because it kind of sets like the tone for these movies. Like people were really expecting like more of like a graphic or more like serious movies. This is more just like PG-13 kind of thing, keeping it like low key and stuff. So we'll just talk about the plot. I'll try to keep it as spoiler free as possible, but like just to begin, so basically it's gonna be this girl Charlotte, and you could tell by the way she's dressed, and when you first see the movie, it's actually Charlotte right there, and how she was on that like trap door. So she is actually, it might not be a spoiler, but she's gonna be turning into the puppet. So she is somewhat like the main antagonist of this movie. Um, but yeah, so moving on from that, as you can see, Vanessa and Mike, they have to go and track down Abby, where she, it's very important for her to be close to like all the rest of the crew and all that stuff, where that's like her real connections and all that. So they have to track down Abby, save her, and do all that stuff. In the meantime, the animatronics are really just doing their own thing. But it does kind of wrap up in the end, um, tying things together. And we'll just talk about how the ending and the after credits scene at the end of the video. Hopefully, I remember since this is all recorded in like one take. So I just have like a loose script, and then we just kind of keep it pushing from there. But yeah, it's just like a general overview of the plot. So the characters. So we're gonna start with Mike Schmidt. So basically, he's like the main character in the series in a way, especially the first movie, where he was dealing with a bunch of like sleeping problems and stuff, and he had this dream about his brother who was abducted by William, and he just generally doesn't want anybody to go through what he went through. And part I forgot to mention was Vanessa does have like, I feel like she has a bigger role in this movie. So she in turn has like the same issues that Mike was having in the first movie, where she has like a nightmare of her father. We'll get more into her character later, but she is related to William Afton, who is like the main villain of like the entire franchise and that stuff. But yeah, Mike, he is just trying to move on with his life mainly, after like the tragedy that happened with him and his family, and of course Abby's affected as well. So he's just trying to keep it pushing. But they do have like conflict between him and Vanessa because now she's getting sucked into it. She's having some dreams. She's having some issues, with her father and all that stuff, which Mike feels like is preventing him from moving on from that. And I feel like it's pretty good arc, honestly. Like the reactions are pretty like reasonable that he has to the whole situation. Um, but yeah, he's just in this like father protected role. You know, he wants to be responsible. He's trying to make a change and all that stuff. But yeah, we're set. Done with Mike. Next, probably to talk about Vanessa. So Vanessa in the first movie, she's like a police officer that assists Mike in, you know, just basically just like surviving and all that stuff. They've grown close, and they do hint at that in the movie. But of course, like I mentioned earlier, they do have like conflict when she's the one having issues, like having issues moving on, like all her dreams and like the history of everything. But that's really where her arc comes in, where it's more of like she isn't her father. She's just trying to be like somebody else, like her own person. Like she's like a police officer, so of course she's trying to do good and, you know, betterment for everybody, for the community and all that stuff. But that's really just like what she's going through right now in a broad spectrum. Then Abby, of course, she is very, very important to the plot. She's mostly like the like call to action, if you might have heard me say in previous videos. So basically, she's the one that kind of gets this fast talker, which you probably seen in the trailer, where, you know, they're just saying like, "Come help me," this and that, because Chica is like her best friend, and she's like the reason why Abby goes on that adventure to go and find them. When eventually leads them to, as you saw in the trailer, like the old location or first location where, you know, the toy animatronics are being stored, and that's when, you know, Megan Fox comes in. Matt Pat is in the movie. He is Toy Bonnie, and Mangle, Toy Freddy, the whole crew. The whole crew is there, and even later we do get to see the, I believe it's called the Withered animatronics, if I remember. Um, but yeah, pretty much everybody does make a appearance in the movie, which is nice to see. And it was just very good to see like the introductions and all that stuff when they were popping up on screen. It was just such a fun vibe, honestly. Yeah, so I mean, without going too much into Abby, we'll go to actually might be a first spoiler, if you are interested or if you haven't seen the movie. But Michael Afton does make an appearance in the movie. So if you don't know from the video games, he is kind of like he's a son of William Afton. Before Vanessa was introduced in the movie series, Michael was always there in the video game series. But just as far as the movie goes, he is also kind of an antagonist. But so in the movie, there is a ghost hunting group with McKenna Grace. You probably heard about her, and basically they are let into the pizzeria, the OG location, and I probably might talk about that later, about the whole little switch up, because obviously they're both named Mike and all that stuff. But yeah, he's basically what causes McKenna Grace's character and her crew to get in trouble. And, you know, it's pretty fun because you can feel the tension from it as well. Like you already know, like just from his vibe. Like I don't think he's shown in any of the trailers, but as soon as you see him, you know, the actor did a very good job at like portraying like, all right, this guy is like not good news, like at all. But yeah, that was very fun with his character. Very good actor. But yeah, let's talk about the writing. So many people do have issues with like the writing and the way it was going. But personally, I did feel like it was good. I mean, I haven't seen a movie that I reviewed yet that I would just straight up say is not good. Obviously, you know, I might be a little biased and everything, but I do think it is, you know, decent writing. I mean, there was a plot hole that my friend pointed out that I just want to mention. Um, so when you go to find not the OG Withered animatronics, but like the OG one from the first movie, they're like nowhere to be seen, and Mike is kind of saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna go I find him, I'm gonna go fix him, and this and that." But even when Abby goes to location, like you can't see him. For a little bit of a spoiler, just because we are talking about the writing, when I was called him Josh, but Mike's Schmidt's character goes back and Abby is in trouble, and he's like, if you guys really cared about her, you'd be here for her right now. And then, you know, towards the end of the movie, they do thankfully make an appearance, and it is pretty cool. Like the whole scene is just like funny. And I mean, not really, it's funny, but it does give a good vibe and everything. And he's like, end of the movie kind of thing, like, oh, let's go, kind of hype situation. I feel like would be more accurate to describe it. Let's see, writing, the theme. So we do usually talk about the theme in all my reviews. But this might be just like a little bit different case, just because it is hard to kind of track down a theme when this is more just like about like entertainment, building the franchise and stuff. But if I had to talk about a theme, I would say like just like unresolved trauma, because Mike in the first movie he was just haunted by the idea of his little brother and how he couldn't do anything to help, and that was like his driving force in the first movie. But with Vanessa, she is somewhat more of a driving force as well, and her unresolved trauma is with her father, William Afton, and that would also like could be like the theme of the movie. It really just depends on how you take it. Obviously, this is like a PG-13 movie. It's more for like entertainment and all that stuff. But as far as the theme goes, I would have to say like unresolved trauma from your childhood and being related to somebody like William Afton could definitely have an effect on you and stuff. But yeah, the comparison to the first movie, I would say it's better. You know what I'm saying? Because I've heard reviews before I've seen the movie saying it was better. I would definitely say it's a lot creepier than the first one. The first one is more like gore and guts and the killing and all that stuff. But for this movie, it was definitely more like an eerie vibe. Like you can feel it because they did a great job with the old pizzeria, as you can see with the lighting and all that stuff. And you already know the withered animatronics. Um, they were pretty, creepy. If you remember as a kid, they were pretty creepy. Like when I was a kid, I used to draw them a little bit, and Withered Chica was definitely like one of my favorites. Obviously Foxy is my favorite, but Withered Chica is probably like one of the favorite of the Withered animatronics, just for how creepy, she is with like, the stands and the eyes and all that stuff. So I feel like they really did a good job on that part in terms of like turning it up. So I know some people were like, I'm not happy with how like not intense it would be. But yeah, I mean, I'd say they turned that up pretty good. Not to like a terrible level, of course, just to like a good level that I like as far as comparison. So yeah, so we're going into final thoughts. So this is kind of like probably like spoiler like area. But this is where I just like genuinely talk about like my thoughts on the movie, basically if I have anything that I haven't talked about before. Um, but we could also expand on some other stuff that I was talking about as well. But yeah, so one thing I want to mention, just to start off, like Corey Kenshin is in the movie, and I was like so hype when I saw him. I was in the theater with like two of my friends, and I was like, "Yo, it's Corey!" It was so funny. And another one, as far as cameos go, a little like I wouldn't say disappointing, but Markiplier did not make it in the movie. I know he said he wanted to be in the first one, and I was very excited for him to be in this one. I mean, obviously he didn't mention or anything, but he said how bad he wanted to be in the first one. I just assumed he'd be in the second one. But as far as like celebrity cameos go, that's probably the most I can remember. I think it was only Corey. He just reprised his role as a taxi driver, and it was just like so funny. But yeah, I mean, getting into final thoughts, I did think it was good. I feel like Megan Fox did get a little like a lot of hate when she was announced as Chica, but Toy Chica is like I'd say one of the main characters. Like obviously all the animatronics are main characters, but Toy Chica is the closest to Abby in this movie. Obviously Chica is the original and closest, but as far as in this movie, she basically was like, oh, this is me. I just have like a new body. I'm still the same person, all that stuff. But they were, using Abby for her own gain and all that stuff. But I would just talk about what I could remember from before. I think that's what I was going to talk about. But at the end of the movie, all the animatronics do show up, and because it looks pretty like grim for the main cast, they're being cornered and all that stuff. And thankfully, all the OGs bust in and they take care of the toy animatronics like they're weaker and stuff. And then there's like another funny scene I wanted to mention with Balloon Boy. he had a pretty good like showing in the movie as far as like making him creepy and all that stuff. But with Mike, so there is a scene where they reprise the whole security office in FNAF 2, and there's just so many good jokes, like so many good stuff. They go through the whole thing with the mask, like the mask is in the movie where they come up and you have to do the mask and you have to use the flashlight because there's no doors and all that stuff. I really did enjoy that, seeing it become like brought to life on screen. Like that was just like really really cool for me. I was so hype. You know what I'm saying? Like this movie really is a movie for like the fans. I feel like a lot of people come at as like a critic standpoint, and like that's totally fair. Totally fair to come out as like critic standpoint because it is a movie. But if you're a fan, like you're gonna enjoy the movie. Like you're gonna have a good time watching this movie. If you really do like love it, honestly. But I was gonna talk about a funny scene with Balloon Boy, and he does this whole thing with the laugh, and it's just so funny. And then there's a scene where Mike just gets like fed up with him, and he just like rips his head off, and it was like the funniest thing ever because like we've all wanted to do that at one point while playing the game. It's just like we hate Balloon Boy, and we just want to like just rip his head off. And I remember an animation where it was doing the same thing where Balloon Boy took the guy's batteries. It was like just an animation, and the guy just like kicked him over. It was like just like so funny. He just like kicked him over, and like Balloon Boy was just like on his face after getting kicked over by this like grown man that was like over it. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like other things I want to say before I wrap up the video. As far as spoilers, this and that. Yeah, I mean, I probably want to just mention a little more spoilers. At the end of the movie, I just remember another thing. So, if you remember the music from the first movie where they had the Living Tombstone song on it, and they do indeed have the Living Tombstone FNAF 2 song in it, and it is like so peak. I was in the theater, I was recording it, like, no way! And people were like singing along. It was just like, it was so much fun. It was honestly just like so much fun. Um, but in the lyrics, we talk about all this stuff. It's been so long, and they kind of like, I wouldn't say use the plot from the song for the movie, but just like a little thing I noticed where, when they're singing and it says like, before I become a puppet. And at the end of the movie, little spoiler, Vanessa does get possessed by the spirit of the puppet because there was a whole thing with like the music box and how she was using it, and it puts the puppet to rest because, a little more spoilers, like Abby was possessed, and but she gets away, and then Mike, reasonably, just cuts off Vanessa. I mean, I wouldn't do it in that same way. I mean, I would like understand if she was just like, hey, we need some space, and I will help you with this. Just like leave Abby out of it, kind of thing. But Mike just basically just goes all in, and it's like, don't come. He didn't say it exactly, but don't come near my family. Basically like you're trouble. And then that's when Vanessa feels alone, and then she gets possessed by the marionette. And there were few like references to security breach. FNAF 3 is at the end of the movie with the end credits scene. You guys probably just watch the movie and see it for yourself because it's pretty good. I don't really want to spoil that part. That part was also hype. You know what I'm saying? Let's see, we're about to hit 20 minutes, so I'm just gonna wrap it up. But yeah, I mean, if you guys do want to like reach out to me, just like in the comments, I do respond to all my comments. And of course, I am active on Twitch and TikTok. All those are linked in the channel description. We are doing a giveaway, and that is, I believe it's going to end in like a few days. It's for like a $25 gift card, just kind of kick off the channel, all that stuff. You do have to click the link to enter in properly. That's how it like records all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I might have missed a few things, but I feel like I did touch on the overview of the whole movie and all the other outside things as well. But if you do like have any questions or anything, just go ahead and throw a comment down. I will respond and all that good stuff. But yeah, just want to thank you guys for watching and hope you guys have a good day. Thank you.